sky.com.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch Premier League, Women's Super League, EFL, Scottish Premiership and much more. Live on Sky Sports.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then.
What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Well then, Football Show. Very happy to say Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent back in studio. Dan, I haven't seen you since 2 days ago. Hello.
Sunday. It's been, I mean, what? This is just it's either feast or a famine, isn't it?
One of the great paper rounds, people said.
Paper round. I know you should take them to calling it the paper round.
Right.
Paper round, yeah, we spoke about it off air and you made a reference to the paper round. I was like...
I know why that is.
Go on.
So when I was in college...
It's a long time ago.
Increasingly so. My first ever role of any kind in radio was on Liffey Sound FM, which was the community radio station in Lucan.
Okay.
So community radio stations are what they do in the say in the tin. They're for the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Anyone in the community.
Joe.
Anybody in the community wants to present effectively, the door's open. Come on in. They're wonderful things. Like
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Great
you know?
opportunity. Yeah.
And so I was in college and I rocked up and said, "Is there anything?" Because I was still doing radio and television production after doing English and history, and they said, "Oh, there's a show Friday evenings at like 8 o'clock called The Paper Round, where you chat through the local papers with the local journalist."
I was hoping that story would end with you instead just being told to go out and deliver the local papers instead.
Oh man,
The Gazette.
God, that'd bring a tear to my eye now.
Yeah,
Wouldn't like to hear it back.
I can imagine. So, but who do you review it with? Sorry, who'd be your guests?
It was with a local journalist
Oh, okay. Yeah.
of the Liffey Champion newspaper.
Yeah.
So we would chat through all the stories, you know.
Listen, I'd say it was good content.
Asbo for teen for
they
stealing
call
bike.
Yeah, I mean, I
That
suppose
kind of stuff.
it's more so the material you might occasionally be working with could be more problematic.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I see there was an awards presentation in the school the other day. You know,
Yeah.
but I don't know. There's more news in the Dublin local papers, maybe. Yeah. But anyway, but I mean that's a long time ago. I mean,
07 it would have been.
have you been saying the paper round for years? Then?
No, I don't know why that crept back in. Paper review with Dan McDonnell, Dion Fanning. Much love for it, Dan. You were, I thought you were outstanding.
It's a 7 out of 10, I think, Joe. A 7 out of 10, like Dennis Irwin, you know.
Well, I mean, was any man more certain of being in Roy Keane's team than Dennis Irwin? Genuinely.
Nah. Well, I mean, but it's only right, like that he is. He should
Say
be. in
Ronaldo
all-
was looking over
he
his
should-
shoulder
he
more than Dennis
He
Irwin.
should be in all the great Premier League teams. He still gets overlooked for your more fashionable Ashley Coles and.
Well, I wish Roy had stopped saying, you know, he's from Cork as the opener, as the
Yeah.
headline.
I know.
Can we start with the fact he was an unbelievable player?
footballer. Yeah, I
He was
listen.
from Cork. It was my roommate. It's like,
That's it.
yeah,
He
that's
made
how
it
Gary
sound like
Pallister got in.
he made it sound like it was a parochial call, and people who've large degree of the audience now, not a large degree of the audience, but certainly a significant portion of the under 30s will have never have watched Dennis Irwin play, and won't be as familiar with him because he's not like a high profile pundit, but not realising he was. I mean, I genuinely think he was the outstanding Premier League fullback, just because he
agree.
wasn't unbelievably quick or unbelievably English. You know, they'd be two of the issues he would have faced.
He was quick enough.
No, he was, but you know what I mean. He's not like sort of I don't know. To be a Premier League fullback now, it's interesting. Keane was speaking about that in the game today, how effective Irwin would be, but you do wonder in the game today would he end up even almost in different positions at times? You know, just because of how assured he is, and sometimes they think that the fullbacks have to be like amazingly fast, like Kyle Walker's speed. But like he played, I mean, with Irwin playing the right of a back three or the left of a back three in certain teams now. I think they tried it with Ireland, didn't they, for a while? That didn't exactly
Do you know what
work.
strikes me when you watch all games now involving Dennis Irwin? Is that, particularly to our 2022 version of football eyes, nobody has any respect for possession. The ball is just pinging around. Dennis Irwin is immaculate.
Yeah.
Never gives it away. He is immaculate. He's such a good player.
Yeah.
He's so underrated.
I know, like he is criminally underrated, and like you can definitely be accused of sort of green tinted glasses with it, but actually no, like his appearance records and sort of stats bear it all out, and actually even in the Irish discussion of great Irish players, he doesn't always feature because he didn't necessarily have a terrific international career. He was just too late for Italia 90. But yet would be one of the best Irish players of the 90s. He went to the World Cup in 94, maybe struggled with the heat and got dropped during that tournament, amazingly. I remember being raging over Terry Phelan and Gary Kelly being selected for that game against Holland. Dennis Irwin was benched, so he didn't have that. He had that free kick against, was it Belgium in 97 in the playoff. But I think at one stage didn't Mick McCarthy tell him to prove himself or something, which was the famous line when Mick was just going through his sort of his growing pains in the gig.
If you're tuning in and thinking, what are we talking about? Roy Keane last night on Sky was bullied into picking his all-time Premier League Manchester United 11. So Irwin got the nod. Schmeichel in goal. Gary Neville got the nod at right back. Pallister in with Stam. Beckham, Ince in centre midfield. Ince over Scholes. Brian Robson was in there. Giggs was in there. And Rooney Ronaldo in there as well. 54 minutes on the clock. Very interesting situation has developed in Villarreal. So they are 2-0 up against Liverpool. It is 2-2 in aggregate. Really, from minute one, it was a very, very different Villarreal to the one we saw at Anfield. They played fast football on the front foot and they scored after 3 minutes. Boulaye Dia with the goal. There was a touch of luck about it. The initial effort was an effort and goal. Instead, it was screwed back to Dia, who passed it into an empty net. And then in 41 minutes, Francis Coquelin with a header. He got above Trent Alexander-Arnold to make it 2-0 on the night. 2-2 on aggregate. Like I said, Villarreal playing so much better than at Anfield, and we are now going to be spending a touch more of the evening talking about this game than I think we'd anticipated.
I mean, earlier today I was genuinely contemplating watching Bournemouth and Forest instead, which is a huge game in the Championship tonight, second v third. Forest with the chance to sort of move level with Bournemouth, and Bournemouth won that, by the way, so they're basically, they are now promoted to the Premier League. But that felt like that's the game that's going to have suspense and drama. If that's what you want, this won't have it. But this has been compelling from the start. I mean, from the first minute, there was a sense of this is going to be different. And I suppose, Emery does have an amazing two-legged cup tie record. So, I mean, I think, but it's almost like, like last week was almost some elaborate ploy, like it's sort of, they've lulled Liverpool into the most dangerous sort of false sense of security. I mean, clearly that wasn't the case, but I mean, there was a sense of, they were just going to take it back however they could to the second leg alive. And I suppose maybe they just always, and Emery said it in his comments, there was always a confidence that it was going to be intense for Liverpool, it was going to be difficult for Liverpool, and maybe 2 goals for them, okay, we can deal with that. It's the classic, we score early and it changes the game, or it changes the mood of the place. And Liverpool needed half time. There was no luck about that half time scoreline. I know there was luck in the chance for the first goal, but I mean, there was at another point Lo Celso went through in a 1-on-1. It was actually a very good goalkeeping from Alisson, but other referees might have sort of sent for a penalty, would have pointed for a penalty. So there was like a 2-on-1 situation there. There was 1 or 2 other times where Liverpool really flirted with disaster. They just weren't at it at all. The 2 fullbacks were definitely targeted on crosses and even on balls forward. Keita had a few difficult moments, and it's just one of those where sometimes with these ties, the advantage of being at home in the second leg is just purely the mood can take a stadium. And like the whole point I was just thinking when it's coming in was like, and this is another great thing that UEFA are looking to kill. They are looking to kill the 2-legged semi-finals and replace them with this week of football where you'd have the semi-finals and final in the same place. And I understand the thinking behind it. Being UEFA, it's not going to be guided by sort of football logic. It'll be by corporate hospitality potential. There's not much corporate hospitality business in Villarreal, Liverpool semi-final for UEFA. But what you would take away from it is these stadiums where everything, where it's the biggest game you can have in a club stadium, other than you maybe get a league decider at the end of a season by complete coincidence between 2 teams that are going for the league. Beyond that, this is as good as it gets in terms of partisan games. I don't know why you would kill that, but I mean, cash is king and all.
I don't want to say Liverpool were complacent this evening, but they really weren't quite themselves in a whole host of ways. Villarreal started very well and had scored within 3 minutes, but even across those 3 minutes, there was just an intensity about Villarreal that wasn't evident in Liverpool. And Liverpool's passing has been off. They've made silly decisions. There was a moment where Van Dijk just gave away such a sloppy free when it was so obvious that was what the Villarreal player was looking for and had very few other options. There was one where Mane put the ball out of play and Klopp was shouting on to him. And so there's like a tetchiness and a frustration amongst Liverpool players and management because they realised really were not playing very well this evening. I suspect they've been in this position so many times where they've almost pretty much killed off a tie in the first leg and they just probably thought, well, we're playing so well, it's going to be okay, and you have to go out and do it. And they left Henderson on the bench, Diaz on the bench. All of these things send just messages of a sort.
Message, yeah.
As opposed to, this is a Champions League semi-final. This is going to be the most difficult game of our season. They didn't play like a team who were walking out of the tunnel with that in their minds.
No.
And it's very understandable. It's almost not even a criticism of them.
No, I mean they've stepped it up now since since half time. They're now suddenly like it was one of those ones where the old cliche about like they needed the whistle was so right because it wasn't getting any better for them near in the end of the first half. In fact, like 15 more minutes, you wouldn't have ruled out Villarreal scoring again. But it's given them a chance to regroup, but also probably for Villarreal too. They were chasing, and now they're probably in this position of thinking, okay, will we take penalties now? Oh, we definitely would. And that sort of leaves them in an awkward place. But I mean, I'd say Villarreal as well. They've probably been, not that they need to rely on old school sort of motivation, but some of the comments about them over the last week. I mean, if someone was doing their work, putting a compilation together of some of the commentary in the UK, in particular. And I know some of it is just talk sport stuff, but I mean they're a disgrace. They shouldn't be in this competition. Look, they're in the semi-final. You don't win a lottery to get to the semi-final. Like you're still decent, And there was probably disparaging stuff there that flipped the other way around and said about Liverpool, say, would have fired people up and been used. And Villarreal have derived energy from somewhere.
No, Cantona asked somebody of Keane's team. No. Killed him to leave Cantona out and Van Nistelrooy.
Yeah.
He couldn't leave Rooney and Ronaldo out. I mean, the two big surprises are Ince and Pallister.
Yeah, I think I think he's spoken about Ince before. Maybe not as much Pallister, although he generally tends to get mentioned in his, in his thing on here. Great characters at Manchester United, and he's dropped into the mix, but not necessarily about the player. It's more about like the personality, if you know what I mean. And like Gary Pallister definitely is one that, when you think about it, he barely had an England career even. Just because of other players that were around at the time, I suppose, like Tony Adams and in the sort of got the early 90s, mid 90s, Mark Wright and a few others like that would have been, Des Walker, a few others. I'm trying to think who would have been directly ahead of Palace. I mean, Steve Bruce didn't either, to be fair.
No.
So it was a different time, and you could definitely argue that Manchester United team was struggling to crack Europe at that stage, and really would their level be equivalent to a modern Premier League superstar multicultural team? You could debate it.
The Keane criteria here was fairly fluid.
Yes.
Like, this was not the most scientific teams picked. I mean, it's fairly evident to most people Rio Ferdinand was better than Gary Pallister, but Keane was saying, look, it's my team. Pallister really helped me out when I joined Man United.
Yeah, exactly.
These kind of things were being said.
This isn't a gospel. This isn't like
no,
the team of the millennium or something that the GAA did at one stage. It's just Roy Keane, almost on sufferance, being asked to do this.
I've no doubt Ince gets a few bonus points for falling out with Ferguson.
Oh, absolutely.
There's that as well.
That's probably one of the criteria. If for some reason Keane decided that even though he was doing it, he actually devised his own sort of PR voting system for himself, where it was like, ability, good character, represented themselves well on nights out, round with Ferguson, round with Keane. Like, Schmeichel was so good he managed to get in, even though he wasn't able to do all of that.
Go Liverpool.
There we go.
62 minutes in the clock. It's a goal I think the keeper should have saved. I think it was Fabinho. Is Fabinho playing this evening? Yes, he is. Yeah, it was Fabinho. So it's right-hand side. It's not a gilt-edged chance by any means. He doesn't have an amazing angle. He just gets the shot away and it seems to somehow scuttle under the goalkeeper. So it's an ugly goal that Liverpool will more than take. We're getting a replay now We're seeing Fabinho here. It's down the right-hand side. Salah gets the ball, sort of half miscontrols it and just stabs the ball to Fabinho. It's a very tight angle. It's not even an angle you would say you should shoot from, and the goalkeeper has just made a mess of it, frankly. In fact, Fabinho's looking across the area. Initially, he wasn't going to shoot, and then he let the ball go so far across him that he didn't have the angle for the cross anymore, and so he thought, sod this, I'll hit it towards goal. And it's gone through the keeper's legs, and it really shouldn't have. That's a gift.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that goal reflects is the slight pattern of the last few minutes of Villarreal just dropping deeper. And
this is why they shouldn't even be in the competition.
allowing themselves to get into a position where, Fabinho can sort of ghost into the area and have a shot, what we'll see now, can Villarreal somehow switch back into that chasing mode again, or have Liverpool now, have they had their 45 minutes of a sort of a slumber, and are they going to sort of not let them go now,
I think the atmosphere is such that Villarreal are still in this game, because it is an extraordinary atmosphere there. There's a text in for you, Dan.
Oh, lovely. Oh, there's a card out. It's only a yellow one, though. Go on.
No away goals rule keeps this game interesting. Again, have you changed your mind yet, Dan? Are you anti the away goal rule situation? Yeah,
I am at the early. I think I can understand maybe you have to probably have a one-size-fits-all solution for it. I think in the earlier rounds of the competition, the no away goals rule makes it harder for underdogs, and it gave them something to hold on when they're away from home 3-0 down or something to a team from a superpower, and you can get a goal back, and then suddenly a 2-0 win and your place gets you through.
Yeah.
I can see why at the semi-final stage of the competition, I mean, the Man City Real Madrid game, are you really thinking the away goals rule? It's not even on your mind, But would the away goal? All I would say is, would the away goals rule, if it existed, encourage Villarreal to be more attacking last week? And it would have been a different tie, no doubt. They wouldn't have gone. They would have had to show a little bit more ambition, knowing that maybe if they could get that away goal, it would give them something to protect. So it's one of those. Yeah, maybe it's not an outrage. It's gone. I still would have kept it on balance, but I reckon it's one of those that no one will be talking about in a couple of years either.
I want to touch on a few things with you before time comes against us. So Adam Pope's going to be with us to chat some Leeds, who are in dire straits. Lost obviously to Manchester City. Yeah. Manchester United played last night. Glory, Man United blasted out after full time to drown out any booing or a sense of protest. There had been a planned protest on 73 minutes, as in 17 years of the Glazers. We walk out with 17 minutes to go. And it was anticipated that this would be sizable enough, and it wasn't at all.
Yeah.
Was that because they were winning 3-0, or is that because most fans think,
they've appointed a manager,
Yeah, so some did get up and they were applauded as they walked out by others who were staying. It was fair play to you for going. Yeah. I'm going to stay.
Do you reckon one or two people went in and just wanted to beat the traffic and just said, I'll go along and do this to protest vote?
Yeah.
It could be one of those people who leave early every week and they're like, well, finally, this is our one chance to do this without judgment.
There were stories about how Manchester United were going to face the wrath of the fans by embarking on a lap of honour, which they did, and they just got applauded in lukewarm terms around the pitch. So it wasn't any
it was probably
great issue.
A few tourists there as well.
Yeah.
Probably just, whatever.
Roy Keane, before picking his team, described it as a lot of hugging and kissing going on tonight, was his sense of the whole occasion. It was like a testimonial for some of those players out there, the Matages of the world. I'll tell you who didn't get a testimonial. Jesse Lingard.
No.
I'll tell you who wasn't happy about that. Jesse Lingard's brother.
Oh.
So Jesse Lingard's brother.
I have to admit.
Not impressed that Jesse didn't get on for a farewell of sorts. 20 years of blood, sweat and tears, 4 domestic trophies, 3 cup final goals, not even a farewell. No wonder it's Conference League next year.
As if the two are related.
Yeah. Class of 92. Oh, he wasn't finished there. Class of 92, Busby Babes. You're now around by people who don't even know the offside trap.
Oof.
Classless. And the fans need to realise. Been there since he was 9 years of age. Didn't even get a send-off. Well done, bro. Your family are proud.
I don't know, do you technically get a testimonial unless you've had 10 years at senior level?
I think he means he wasn't brought on for a final few minutes last night.
Oh, yeah.
In a meaningless game.
Well, I mean, he spoke to Paul Scholes, didn't he, recently? That's probably the problem.
Yeah. So
Jesse didn't mention that, did he? Jesse's brother. Slight issue.
There wasn't much to be said about the game. It was fairly humdrum stuff.
There really isn't.
Brentford were terrible.
It's a season that never ends, the Manchester United season.
I know. Saturday, on the other hand, Newcastle, Liverpool and Leeds, Man City. As Liverpool have a great chance goal. Unless it's offside, it's a goal.
No, he's pointing for it. So
Luis Diaz, who came on at half time, has headed the ball into the net. He's still celebrating. That's got to be given.
well, I mean, you presume it's going to be given. There doesn't seem to be. The Villarreal reaction was less irate, although with the offsides, I mean, you can't really protest for them.
Do you know what they're saying? VAR's ruined football. It's bloody ruined calling football on radio.
It really has made life a lot more complicated.
It would have been.
It's definitely a different
Question at
intonation
this
in the voice you need to manage. You can't.
It's been given. So that's 4-2 Liverpool in aggregate. They're home and host. They've plucked this out of the fire. I mean, they're the better team. They just started really badly. It's a left-footed Trent Alexander-Arnold cross. It's a great cross.
Yeah,
man, he's good.
Yeah, Diaz is definitely onside. So, that's that.
That's that. That was that on Saturday as well. Newcastle with 10 wins in 14. It really looked tricky, as did Leeds at Ellen Road. We can chat to Adam Pope about that. Milner played, Gomez played, Jota was in, Salah, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Thiago all rested. The game really remembered in many respects for Jake Humphrey.
Jake Humphrey?
Yeah. This was like the real burning issue on football Twitter across a lot of Saturday. So a clip went up of Jake Humphrey on BT Sport presenting the game. And he basically, in this clip, was talking to the pundits next to him. And he was obviously thrown to an ad break or signing off from something. And so he was speaking to them, but also just to camera, you know. And he was saying, as ever with this club, that's Newcastle, there are people standing on the sidelines ready to snipe and have a bit of a pop. At the moment, the way they're running the club, it's proving difficult for them, isn't it? Yeah. So then Sachin Nakrani, who's a journalist with The Guardian, quote tweeted this clip and said, "That's Amnesty International told," which generated this huge response. Max Rushton, for instance, said that Jake Humphrey should really explain who he's referring to. So then Humphrey realises this is getting tricky for him and becoming a big
It's really
thing.
bad if he's wading into this situation.
Oh, he did, yeah, in a big way. So he said, "I appreciate how this clip looks. Let me be absolutely clear, though. Eddie Howe had left us moments before this. We were talking about him, and my praise, my use of they, was aimed squarely and only at him and his staff." So this was.
But what criticism has Eddie Howe received? Other than, the whole handling the whole sports washing situation in a slightly uncomfortable way. I don't think football wise he's been getting any grief, has he?
No, not footballing wise.
So are you suggesting that Jake's apology may not be 100% on the money in terms of its...
I don't know. What struck me as much as anything was that when he says people standing on the sidelines ready to take a snipe and have a bit of a pop, the people on the sidelines who've been most vociferous are Amnesty International,
yes,
the widow of Khashoggi.
But I think sometimes...
when you say people on the sideline, you're almost like typical begrudgers.
Yeah, I think this is the problem sometimes that, and I mean, I'm wary of sort of like tarring a lot of people with the same brush, but you do see around, even some of the boxing coverage in recent times and the critical questions that have been asked around certain characters and people, that sometimes like broadcasters are so in the zone of being there's just a small bit too much inside the tent at times, if you know what I mean. Just in terms of, and it's like sometimes sometimes it's to make guests or people feel more comfortable. It's like, yeah, we're not quite like them. Sometimes they even distance themselves from being in the media. It's like they're getting a lot of grief in the press, and it's like, well, no, you're actually a TV station. Like, you are in the media too. Yeah. Just because you have a lot of pundits with you, and there is almost this tone of going down that road. And maybe it's just a default setting that he went down that road without even thinking of the implications of it. In this case, that it's not the critics, as you mentioned, aren't just like, I don't know, the sort of the stereotypical journalists in TV dramas who are generally lads who are great, creeping around bins and stuff like that. It's actually like very from the top of human rights organisations criticising. So they can't be lumped in the same view as like the forums or something.
Yeah, that was a bit disparaging of people ready to have a pop for no good reason.
Honestly, to me, it's more like trying to ingratiate yourself to people, rather than necessarily thinking about what this means.
That's what I thought as well. See, I think now it's interesting in broadcasting media generally in that the fans now have such a voice instantly. through social media. And I think in his position, you can be hyper aware that a significant percentage of the audience are Newcastle fans. And so I think there is a pandering to that audience as opposed to saying what's true, which is their ownership model is a stain in the game. So I think there's a degree of, well, a lot of our audience here are very pro-Newcastle, and I don't want to just alienate them across these 3 hours. So, and that's an understandable.
Maybe, you see you see the way it's going, and Newcastle are definitely. It is going this way that even within, and again, not to get bogged down into press stuff. We're not doing the paper round here. Like there is an element of some of the Newcastle press are almost getting into the mode of, well, the press down in London, they're the ones that, wasn't there some rumpus over Eddie Howe getting asked questions at a game against Chelsea? Yeah. And you see some quite bizarre stuff, it must be said, from members of the North East media who are sort of on it in the same way of, like, a national team. And maybe at times, we've all got caught in that road in various ways. Like, you get temporarily blinded by patriotism or something. And with Newcastle, I think to a degree, there's an element of it's been a miserable beat for so long, and they have the chance for a bit of success that they don't want this moment to be ruined by people bringing up things, even if those things are very important things.
I'd have a certain sympathy if you're on the daily beat in Newcastle. Like, you can't day in, day out, only say, I can barely cover this because of the overall situation. You can't have like a ticker running across your work at all times, or a disclaimer at the top of every piece going, I just want to acknowledge I've written about the ownership model before, and now I just want to give you the injury news for the weekend.
No, but you totally agree, but you definitely can't go down the road of seeming to almost try and call out people who've been asking questions about this.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not too sure what you're talking about. There's a small bit of that going on. Yeah, just a small bit of that going on. I know you're not, and I said no one really cares, but I think there's been small elements of that which wouldn't be ideal either. Like, Newcastle, people affiliated to Newcastle are probably just going to have to accept that this isn't going away as a subject matter. As Liverpool, it's over. When it was over at 2-1, maybe definitely over at 2-all. Wasn't sure they were going to win in the night. They are now 3-2 up in the night with 15 minutes to go. 5-2 in aggregate. Looks like Mane. I mean, Villarreal must have been pushing here. We were kind of engrossed in the chat, so I didn't see it. But when I glanced up, Mane was all alone in the Villarreal half, and he had gone around the keeper and was just passing the ball into an empty net.
It's one of those ones where you watch a game and you're naturally drawn to the underdog. And to be honest, I would have found it hilarious if Liverpool had lost tonight. But then you would have sort of woken up. I would have, honestly, all the Liverpool Football Club merchants would have been gutted. But in saying that, you would have enjoyed maybe sort of 10-15 minutes of laughter at like this collapse, because Liverpool were so confident of going through, and how the English football establishment would have responded to it. And then you would have realised, oh no. Actually, I'd really want to see Man City and Liverpool in the Champions League final. This is the slight, this is the slight dilemma for a lot of people. I wouldn't be generally in favour of an all English or an all Spanish or an all Italian Champions League final. It's sort of the one I want. I'm not even sure if I want Madrid to play Liverpool.
Of course you don't.
Of
course it's Man City Liverpool.
That's going to be an amazing game, and you have to park. But it's sometimes in the World Cup, you cheer on the underdogs, thinking this would be a great story. Then it gets to the knockouts, and it's like, oh no, actually somebody's matchups aren't all that inspiring. No. It's like Senegal went on the great run in 2002, but then you get to the latter stage, it's like, oh no, I would have preferred if France were here now.
So and that's you always won't be cheering on plucky Real Madrid tomorrow then, no?
Yeah, well, I mean, at this stage, if Villarreal played terrific football, it'd be a different debate. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
But you'd know what type of final you're going to get if they were in it.
We got to take a break. I do want to talk to you about the Stephen Bradley situation, and we're going to chat some Leeds as well. Adam Pope is going to join us, and of course, well, it's probably less urgent now, but we'll be keeping you updated on Liverpool 5-2 up on aggregate in Villarreal. Now you're welcome back. So Liverpool back in control of the tie. Jordan Henderson just onto the pitch to see things through, but they're 5-2 up on aggregate, 3-2 on the night, 78 minutes on the clock. So into the Champions League final. Another extraordinary achievement in this extraordinary season, really. You don't even give them credit anymore for reaching the Champions League final. It's like, well, they should be here, but
if people were out tonight and just looked at the score, they'd be like, oh
yeah. Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent is here, as is Adam Pope of BBC Leeds. Hey Adam.
Evening guys.
So very interesting times around Leeds way. Here's a quote from Jesse Marsh, Dan. So get this. I mean, I know Bielsa was loved, but Jesse's doing his damn best here, Adam. He said, I've never seen supporters like this. On the streets, I wasn't being facetious when I said this game was the best team in the world against the best club in the world. So he's all out, charm offensive. How is the Jesse Marsh, very US style, very open, very articulate, prone to lines like that? How's that going down with the Leeds faithful? Gruff old Yorkshire types would be saying, no, surely.
Yeah, it's mixed, to be quite honest.
Right.
And that was something that on that quote, he mentioned it pre the game. And he basically said, well, you decide. Best team in the world against best club in the world. You decide which is which. And then afterwards, clearly Manchester City has showed without playing at the best or anywhere near the best why they are one of the best, if not the best club side in the world. But yeah, some of the quotes aren't going down well and some of the antics aren't going down well. And if you noticed at the end of the game, which was extraordinary, Joe and Dan, for the way that the Leeds support just garnered itself and went through the roof again, even at 3 down and 4 down. It just creates its own momentum, does the Leeds. It really is quite unique in that sense. But at the end of the game, and I couldn't quite believe my own eyes as well, that he was sort of celebrating as if, it was a win. And he basically came in and said, look, it felt like a win, even though it's crazy to say, he said. But so I sort of knew what he was getting at in terms of the way that the crowd behaves and what have you. But some of the things he said have really rubbed people the wrong way. And maybe that's just you have to accept that's him. But yeah, I know what you're saying. There are Leeds fans and Yorkshire folk that don't sort of take too well to it and would rather little was said at this point because Leeds are in a relegation battle. However, that's his way, and if that's his way of creating positivity and motivation, and it works, then, you can't really knock it. But at the moment, it's definitely splitting people.
Right, because I was only really joking and just indulging in Yorkshire stereotypes there. I didn't realise at all. I thought you were going to say, no, we love him. When you say his antics, so beyond that quote, best team in the world against the best club and what you've described on Saturday, what else has Marsh done which is maybe a touch different to, I suppose, the more traditional managers we see in English football?
Yeah, look, there was the first thing that sort of made people think, oh, wow, what's that? When he did the huddle after the Leicester game, the defeat at Leicester. Well, they actually didn't play too badly that day, So, and people going, hang on, they've lost. Why are you doing that? Now, like, for me, and I had a long conversation with Jesse Marsh about some of the things that might be perceived as being a bit different and what have you. And he gets it, and he knows that there's going to be the sort of the isms that don't sort of match what we say here, if you like, or in UK or across Europe, but they're very much rooted in his American culture. However, I do feel for him in many ways that becomes almost a xenophobic thing to beat him with, or any foreign manager, if you like. And I really do feel for him on this front. It's almost like you don't have a chance before you start sometimes. And it happened a bit with Bielsa. I think there was an extent with Thomas Christensen, Darko Milanic when he came in for a very short time. So I do think there's, I'm not saying a fine line, but there's a line that gets crossed and too quickly.
I agree with you, and it's very real, and I think I sort of have it myself. And rightly or wrongly, maybe our generation, I don't know if you think this, Dan, but I just think of the Soccer AM skit of the soccer manager talking about soccer ball and all the isms that are in that, and like that sort of is in the ether.
When you started that to read the Jesse Marsh quote to Adam there, I was like, oh, Joe, no, you're just going down. You're going down this road.
Oh, you thought I made it up?
Yeah, no. I mean, I just thought even the tone in which his quote was discussed, it's like, oh, here they go with the over-exuberant Americans again.
But he is an over-exuberant American.
I know, but like, as I said, we've been talking in here, some of the Lampard quotes after Everton games recently, you know, if said with an American accent, people would be like, not sure about.
Well, sorry, Lampard's had a lot of criticism too, and I was merely going, here's the quote: how has it gone down with the Leeds faithful? If Adam, you had said they love it, they love the positivity and they love the the style, then I would have said no problems with it. But I do think there is that very, very unfair kind of crossed arms, what do the Americans know about football hangover.
Oh, I think you're right. And let's remember, this is a man, he said himself, look, I'm used to battling at the top of the table, not the bottom of the table. And people will then go, well, hang on, this was Austria, this didn't go too well for you in Germany in his last spell, but his first spell was fine. But he's been at the top of stuff at MLS. He took on a very difficult thing in Canada when he first went there with a new club with impact and new owners. So this is a guy who's well versed in European football and football as a whole, and has played with some top players in his time as well. So I don't think it's fair to do that. He has a track record, definitely. What we don't know is can it transfer quickly into the Premier League? And after 5 games without defeat, 11 points from 15, you're thinking, oh, it might not look great at the moment. It might not be how he wants it exactly, but he was getting results. But obviously at the weekend, an expected defeat to Manchester City with 2 big games to come. It's still to be decided whether this style of football is A, going to keep them in the division, and B, will it be the style, will it be the route of something that can move Leeds forward in next season?
Yeah, and I'm just kind of curious because I think there was, and you're living this day in, day out, so we're sort of looking at it externally. But I think I'd certainly got into the mode of thinking, it's Burnley and Everton and it's going that road. And of course, Burnley have had the upturn in results and Everton have picked up a couple. Was there any sense of complacency at any stage at Leeds, or were people always looking at that fixture list and a little bit apprehensive about where this might go? Because you look at it, it is Arsenal up next, then Chelsea, and all of a sudden you're into the last 2 games, okay, Brighton and Brentford, but there's every chance you could be playing catch up going into those last 2 games. Has there always been that sense of apprehension there, or had it slipped into, we might be okay because of what's happening below here?
Yeah, look, the apprehension is always there for Leeds fans. That sort of comes with the territory. And there are sort of some long-in-the-tooth fans that I speak to regularly, and they felt that it was going to go to the wire, whatever. I would say this, though, I think for many of us, and I put myself in there too, that the win at Watford, you sort of felt, wow, that might be it. I've actually said until very recently, I thought 33 points might be enough to stay up. No way now, because Burnley have skewed everything. So I've been completely wrong in my predictions in that sense. But apprehension is always there. Definitely hasn't been any complacency. I think the thing that people, what is starting to come home with roost that little bit is the argument, why didn't players come in? And of course, the board can say that Bielsa was stubborn in his demands, if you like, and not wanting particularly to just expand the squad for expanding's sake, etc. There's the injury stuff and what have you. So people have always had an apprehension, if you like, and that includes whether the new manager or the new head coach can take this club forward or just at least keep it in the division. So no, complacency isn't a thing, definitely. But I'll tell you what, knives are starting to come out now. Because there is a real fear that, as you say, within, week tomorrow night after they play Chelsea, how will it look when Everton have played twice, including Watford away that night, and it could look very different. Personally, I still think Burnley might run out of a bit of steam, but the balance has shifted, and people are very, very apprehensive, definitely right now as Leeds fans. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it certainly has. Pre the Man City defeat, 0-0 draw away to Palace, nothing disastrous in that. The win against Watford 3-0 was a great result. Before that, a draw with Southampton, it's not disastrous. 3-2 win against Wolves, 2-1 win against Norwich. So that's all very, very reasonable. Towards the end of Bielsa's tenure, Adam, certainly they were far too open. The man-for-man style was being manipulated too routinely. What has Marsh done differently?
Well, firstly, they are more robust defensively than they have been. And I think there's no coincidence that when Liam Cooper came back prior to this game, which he got injured in the warm-up, they'd conceded 1 goal in 3 games, 2 of which had been clean sheets. So that more zonal approach to defending is definitely something you can see. I do argue that they play narrower and they're more compact. He sort of disagrees in that when that's been put to him in terms of, sort of going forward with width. I think they do have width, obviously, in Rafinha and Harrison, but they do tend to be drawn in a lot more, in my opinion. But compact and more robust, that's the difference. There's no doubt about it. They have still had a goal threat, but obviously against Manchester City, they drew a blank. That's to be expected. But this is still in the absence of a main striker, and it's still a real worry that one thing that has continued, we thought might change. There is a sense of round peg, square holes. Whether Dan James starts up front, and a few players have been sort of still at that position, or not using natural centre-back, say, in the position. There's still a little bit of that going, which is a concern. But no, the two things are more robust defence and more compact. And he has restored confidence. There's no doubt that they were lacking in that, towards the back end of the Bielsa regime, whether you believe he should have stayed or not.
Okay. Well, squeaky bum time. Interesting times. We'll talk to you, I suspect, before the end of the season, Adam. Thanks very much for dropping in.
Hey, pleasure, guys.
Cheers. Adam Pope there, BBC Leeds. Liverpool 3, Villarreal 2, 5-2 on aggregate. I don't, by the way, think that Jesse Marsh sounds like dude on Soccer AM. I feel like you spun it that way, though.
I could see you stewing over that. You're very predictable sometimes. You're like, it's like, I didn't say that, did I? I just thought you started off the Jesse.
It was a
Jesse Marsh
comment
in a bit of, here we go again. Those Americans,
Those Americans?
Yeah, I thought it was sort of a bit Jake Humphrey-ish, Joe.
Oh, Daniel. We're going to take a break. I want to chat to you about the Stephen Bradley situation. Some talk. Could Robbie Keane be in line? So we'll do that in just one moment. Our football show coverage brought to you by Sky. Watch every UEFA Champions League and Europa League match live on BT Sport this season. Back in 1 sec.
Live on Sky Sports.
Full-time, Liverpool into a Champions League final, so very satisfactory second half for Jurgen Klopp and for Liverpool. Stephen Bradley, Shamrock Rovers manager since caretaker appointment in 2016, leagues in 20 and 21, FAI Cup in 19. It's been incredibly successful. There's a sense this was all set up in every facet this club to progress over the next number of years, and almost out of nowhere, I would say I hadn't heard talk of Bradley's departure ever, I don't think. It now seems Lincoln were showing interest, and now the word has come through that they have made, or they're making, an official approach, generally something you do when you're pretty confident of landing your target. So it would seem all of a sudden Stephen Bradley is off.
Yeah, no, the official approach has happened. So the ball's in Stephen Bradley's court. Effectively, I don't think working out compensation should be a problem. He was previously on a long list, or on a sort of a shorter long list for the MK Dons job. So he there had been soundings before. So I have to say, the timing, a lot of it is a surprise, but in some ways it doesn't surprise me that he's come to a situation where he could leave Shamrock Rovers. I've been writing about this for tomorrow's paper, and I was sort of working on this story today, and there's a big massive debate of Twitter mentions full of Shamrock Rovers fans and Lincoln fans, people Lincoln disparaging about them, and a bit of back and forth. But
they're 17th in League
they finished
1.
17th in League. They were in the playoffs last year, Lincoln. And it's just one of those things where the power of English football at the moment is astonishing. The Championship is something like the 6th richest league in Europe. You have clubs in League One like Sunderland and Sheffield Wednesday are playing in a playoff semi-final this weekend. There's 38,000 tickets sold for that game. We have an image of League One in our head, and because Lincoln haven't been in they haven't been in the English second division or English second tier, I think, since 1961. They sound like a small club, and then you read up on them, and it's like, well, actually, their average crowd is 9,000 every week. Their wage bill is 5 million, and I think their manager would be probably likely to be paid considerably more, multiples probably of what manager here would get paid in a very good job here. So if you're someone like Stephen Bradley, he's 37, he's been in here, had a long chat in the studio a couple of times, I think with Nathan, there was one recently. Went to Arsenal as a kid, as the best player of his generation in Ireland, but just didn't happen for him for whatever reason. So he's effectively not known in England, and you get an offer at the start of pre-season, so you have you're not going in on some sort of short hit with a club that has good respect for Ireland, that knows the story here, that's targeted him. You might never actually get as attractive an opportunity to go into the English game. And yes, it's not at the most glamorous club at all. It's not at the biggest club. It's not a club that they hear the name and they're like, oh yeah, he has to go for that. And Rovers, are about to go into what is potentially a very exciting European campaign this summer with loads of opportunity. But the situation probably is, in a way, he's done as much as he can at Shamrock Rovers aside from that big European run. And his stock may not be as high in 6 or 12 months' time. That's just the nature of the game. So you can look at it pragmatically and say, yeah, this actually just could be good timing. Now, he might decide to stay, but I think that it's gone this far. I'd be disappointed. I'd be surprised if he turned it down. I'd actually be disappointed if he left, because you don't like to see sort of that type of instability. But I'd be surprised if he turned it down.
Is it your understanding that they're interested in taking McPhail as well?
I think it's they're looking at Bradley, and I think if he wants to bring his people with him, I think Glenn Cronin and Stephen McPhail would be. Now, McPhail is the sporting director at Rovers. The sporting director at Lincoln is a fella called Jez George, who's going nowhere and has been very involved in this. So if McPhail went, I think it'd be in a different role.
Okay.
Yeah. It wouldn't be some kind of takeover or something. No, it's not like that.
Okay.
It would be as his support staff. But it's a story that's going to play itself out over the next couple of days. And then the question of who would replace him at Rovers would become very topical, because that's actually still a hugely attractive job. Like, it really is.
Robbie Keane's hanging around.
Well, that's the first name that'll spring to mind for a lot of people. I mean, I can see why people would mention it though. But Rovers wouldn't be expecting this. You know, this is mid-season. You generally look for a manager when you need to, like, when you're in crisis, or someone come in steady the ship, or Jesse Marsh come in, we're leaking goals, or Rovers are starting to hit form at a very exciting time and have a very settled style and way of playing.
Yeah.
So it's a big decision for them, you know. It's a really big, if it comes to that. I don't think they've given up hope on him staying, but generally with these things, as you say, it's gone a certain way down the road. So I would have thought it would take a quite substantial hitch to stop it from happening.
Well, the move makes sense the way you've explained it, to be fair.
It does. I mean, League One, like, you watch it. I mean, we have a lot of players in League One at the moment. You know, like Georgie Kelly scored that amazing goal at the weekend for Rotherham. Ogbene plays there. James McLean. Some proper big clubs, and it's you know, as I said, people turn down going to Scotland and Holland and Denmark to play in League One.
Don, thanks very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Liverpool through. We'll see what happens tomorrow in Madrid. Kenny Cunningham will be in for the evening tomorrow. We'll have Wednesday night rugby amongst other things. Our football show coverage brought to you by Sky. Watch every UEFA Champions League and Europa League match live on BT Sport this season. We will talk to you tomorrow, OTB AM from 7:30. Tom Dunn on the way next.